From nearly firing his bandmate to writing an unreleased library of original music, a lot has been unearthed about Nirvana frontman Kurt Cobain since his tragic death in 1994. Kurt Cobain had a notorious aversion to the near-instant worldwide fame that was thrust upon him after the release of Nevermind in 1991. While it's understandable that a shy 20-something would bristle at the seemingly never-ending slew of interviews, radio appearances, and live performances, that lifestyle was the exact thing Cobain sought out. His own wife Courtney Love later revealed that he wanted nothing but to be the biggest star in the world. While he took public stances like promoting little-known indie bands and mocking corporate America on major magazine covers, Cobain desperately contacted record companies, even offering to pay them just to be signed. Of course, Nirvana would eventually sign with the giant label Geffen Records in 1991, just before changing the music world with Nevermind. Still, the reality of being a rock star ultimately weighed heavy on Cobain. In 2021, his former bandmate Dave Grohl told Channel 4 News,
Kurt had to bear the weight and responsibility of being the face of the band.
When grunge music entered the rock limelight, certain artists from the 80s hair metal scene weren't particularly enthused about the shift in popularity. Surprisingly, Guns N' Roses lead singer Axl Rose was initially a Nirvana fan. However, the feeling wasn't mutual. Various interviews described Cobain as wanting to avoid being anything like Guns N' Roses, saying the group had nothing of substance to offer. Still, Axl tried. He even wanted to take Nirvana on tour in 1992. Kurt denied them every chance he got, and that's when Rose started to take shots of his own, calling Kurt and wife Courtney Love derogatory names and saying their infamous drug problems should land them in prison if their baby were born with any medical issues. This all came to a head in a backstage confrontation at the 1992 MTV Video Music Awards. Later that year, Kurt would tell The Advocate that Axl was a bad songwriter, in addition to being a racist and homophobe. Needless to say, there was no love lost between the two. Saturday Night Live has long been a platform for unknown musicians to gain unprecedented access to the mainstream music listening audience, and the show's influence was at its height in the early 90s.
Hi, I'm Charles Barkley, host of the season premiere of Saturday Night Live with Nirvana. Look, Mom, your favorite, Nirvana.
Grunge wasn't on everyone's radar yet when Nirvana first took the SNL stage in 1992. They played their landmark hit Smells Like Teen Spirit and then tore through Territorial Pissings before destroying every bit of onstage gear that they could. They then finished off the show by making out passionately as a band during the curtain call and credits roll. It seemed the band was in high spirits and ready to usher in a new age of music. In fact, that very performance helped the band dethrone Michael Jackson from the top of the charts. However, Cobain almost didn't live to see the band's success. That night, he skipped the traditional cast after-party and retreated to his hotel room. Once there, he overdosed on heroin. Courtney Love found him the next morning and was somehow able to revive him by throwing cold water on his face and punching his chest. Kurt liked provocative, weird imagery. Nirvana's music videos were no exception. When In Utero dropped in 1993, featuring a transparent anatomical female model with angel wings on the album cover, it seemed the next logical step would be to make equally visually striking videos for the singles. Unfortunately, only one song, Heart-Shaped Box, would get the video treatment before Kurt's passing. Kurt had a slew of images ready for the video that would turn heads worldwide, including a little girl in a Ku Klux Klan garb, a field of poppies, and an elderly Jesus on a cross. The man Kurt originally had in mind to play that last character was famed writer William S. Burroughs, with whom Cobain had previously collaborated on a spoken poetry album. Though the two had never actually met in person, the pair had a mutual respect for one another. Once production of the Heart-Shaped Box video was nearing, Cobain had already filled his journal with direction and images of how he wanted to showcase Burroughs. Burroughs declined to take part, but he did have Kurt out to his Kansas home for a visit in fall of 1993. Burroughs said of the visit, "There's something wrong with that boy. He frowns for no good reason." If anything, Kurt was honest about his demons, but while he was open about his depression and the impact of sudden fame, neither of those things were apparently the direct cause of his drug use. Instead, it's alleged that his substance abuse initially sprung from a chronic lifelong stomach problem that many doctors had little actual help for.
How's your stomach? Did you find anything to...
It's gone.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Just before he died, Cobain said he had suffered from constant pain for 6 straight years, and one thing that brought him temporary relief was heroin. According to a journal entry featured in the Kurt Cobain Montage of Heck documentary, he began to self-medicate with the drug when his discomfort escalated in the late 1980s. The more he treated it with heroin, the quicker he became a full-fledged addict. Marrying Courtney Love, who had her own relationship with the drug, didn't help, but it was his excruciating stomach pain that first led him to heroin. The Melvins frontman Buzz Osborne was one of the closest people to Kurt in his formative years. The pair had toured together and even attended the same high school. Since the release of Montage of Heck, Osborne has spoken out about details mentioned in the documentary that he found to be inaccurate. According to Osborne, Cobain enjoyed spinning tall tales to get reactions from people, and that many of Kurt's stories were made up. For example, though it's true that 2 of Cobain's relatives died from suicide, and his hometown had a suicide rate twice the national average, Osborne said that Cobain's claim that he once attempted suicide by lying in front of a train was made up. Another Cobain story was that he lived under a bridge in his native Aberdeen for a time when he was homeless, and that it inspired the Nevermind song, Something in the Way. The truth is that while Cobain did experience a brief spell of homelessness, he instead stayed at friends' houses until he got back on his feet. During Kurt's final days alive, one constant in his tormented life was the soothing voice of R.E.M's Michael Stipe. Cobain had the album Automatic for the People on near repeat, and it was even playing in his CD player when he took his life. Kurt so admired Stipe and R.E.M's music that he wanted Nirvana's 4th album to have that kind of feel. Stipe also had a mutual respect for the Nirvana singer and could tell he was going through an incredibly tough time. In fact, Stipe claims he tried to save the young musician. Stipe worked tirelessly to arrange a duet with Kurt in the last couple of months of his life, even going so far as to send a plane ticket and a driver to pick him up and take him to the airport. Reportedly, Kurt got the ticket, but just hung it on his wall. The driver waited outside for 10 hours. Kurt wouldn't leave his room or answer his phone. Stipe says he was just trying to help out a friend who was in a very bad place, but sadly, it was a lost cause. In 2019, he told SiriusXM he wrote the song Let Me In about this experience.
It's all about him, and it's all about this, wanting so desperately to help someone who's in such a dark place and feeling completely helpless.
December 16th, 1993 was the last day most Nirvana fans saw Kurt Cobain. That final appearance was Nirvana's MTV Unplugged performance, a towering swan song for the band. Kurt led his band through haunting acoustic renditions of their songs on a stage that was fashioned to resemble a wake. Surprisingly, the legendary performance almost never came to be. Kurt was in the throes of heroin addiction, and relationships within the band were strained almost to the breaking point. MTV execs were perturbed as the band did not intend to play some of their biggest hits, including Smells Like Teen Spirit. Instead, Kurt planned several obscure songs and invited musicians outside Nirvana's typical lineup to perform with them. The day before the taping, Kurt announced that the show was off entirely in what ended up being some sort of weird power play. He quickly reversed course, but the morning of the taping, his poor health threw another curveball as he was vomiting blood and bile just hours before going on camera. With his nerves rattled, he pleaded for all the people he knew to sit in front, close to the stage. He made it through, and history was made. But the seminal live album almost never came together. When Kurt Cobain died in 1994, Nirvana ended. A year later, drummer Dave Grohl released the first Foo Fighters album. While Foo Fighters would eventually achieve icon status of their own, it started as a solo project, with Grohl playing nearly every instrumental part. Grohl also wrote all the songs for the project, many of which he wrote while touring with Nirvana. He told Guitar World, "When Nirvana was on tour, I'd bring a guitar with me. So in hotel rooms late at night, I'd have something to do. Eventually, I was living with a person who had an 8-track in the basement, and these songs just started coming out." At Cobain's request, Grohl played the recording of Alone and Easy Target for the singer. Grohl shared that while Cobain was enthusiastic about the music, he was underwhelmed by Grohl's lyricism. Grohl also alleged that Cobain may have been less than fond of his drumming. Just before rehearsals for the tour in support of In Utero, Grohl overheard Cobain tell bassist Chris Novoselic, "I think we need a drummer that's more rudimental." Grohl was startled, but after he confronted Cobain about it, the frontman decided to not make a change after all. Kurt Cobain's marriage to fellow rock star Courtney Love was publicly tumultuous, but what many may not know is that the Nirvana frontman was reportedly considering breaking things off with Love and possibly even planning a formal, legal divorce. According to Alternative Nation, Francis Bean Cobain's ex-husband Isaiah Silva, a rock musician himself, attested in 2018 that Kurt Cobain had filed for divorce from Love before his death. Silva said that after the singer's death, Love burned the divorce paperwork to erase it from existence. He claims to have received this information from Cobain's mother, Wendy O'Connor. According to Metal Sucks, that allegation is potentially supported by a handwritten note that the Seattle Police Department found in Cobain's wallet when he died in 1994. In the note, which was publicly released in 2014, Cobain complains about Love draining his money. Kurt Cobain once explained to Rolling Stone exactly why he picked the name Nirvana, saying, "I wanted a name that was kind of beautiful or nice and pretty instead of a mean, raunchy punk name like the Angry Samoans." Nirvana, a Buddhist term for a blissful state of being free of pain, misery, and worldly concerns, fit the bill. According to the Big Book of Rock and Roll names, the band tried out other names before settling on Nirvana, including Fecal Matter, Ted Ed Fred, and Skid Row, which was ultimately used by the contemporary hair metal band fronted by Sebastian Bach. It wasn't until the release of Montage of Heck that Nirvana's other possible band names were widely disseminated. According to the film, Cobain jotted down his ideas in a notebook including the Reaganites, Elvis Cooper, Boy in Heat, Windowpane, the Mandibles, Erectum, the Gross Nagging Rash, and the Nirvana-esque Bliss. During his lifetime, Kurt Cobain never released any music under his own name. His recorded legacy consists of a handful of Nirvana studio albums and some live tracks and B-sides. Had he lived past the age of 27, his fans may have gotten to hear a large volume of Cobain-branded solo recordings. Letters to Kurt author and whole guitarist Eric Erlandson discussed his late friend's post-Nirvana ambitions in a 2012 interview with Fuse. He compared Cobain's work to that of the Beatles, saying that Kurt's new direction would have been comparable to the Beatles' seminal White Album. Some demos and home recordings surfaced on Nirvana anthologies over the years after Cobain's death, but so far, nothing has been released of the magnitude that Erlandson suggested. Somewhere out there, there's reportedly at least an album's worth of unheard material. When and if fans will ever get to hear it, though, still remains a mystery. If you or anyone you know is struggling with addiction issues, help is available. Visit the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration website or contact SAMHSA's National Helpline at 1-800-662-HELP 4357.